Good morning. Thank you, Jesus, for another day. We're back with another video. Let's get into it. I'm going to measure for a house right now. It's just a bathroom. It's a pretty decent sized bathroom, but all I'm measuring is for drawer fronts and doors. So it's going to be a refacing for us, but this client is choosing to use her existing drawer boxes, which is awesome. That works. So I'm gonna drive on over there, set up all of my measuring sheets, which takes a little bit of time, and then measure for brand new doors, soft close, brand new drawer fronts that will screw onto our existing boxes. And then they are stained, so we're not going to be touching the frames. Our doors will cover about 90% of the frame, so we don't have to worry about doing anything with the frame. The frame's in good condition. We just need to measure these doors and drawer fronts. So let's go and do that. I just got back to the warehouse after measuring for those stained doors. Client went with the Shaker 45 slab combination, so that'll be really nice. Existing boxes, brand new handles. We're not going to be touching the frame, so that'll be a really good job. Now my next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting out face frames for the cabinet job that I measured for yesterday. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 7 or 8. I'll have to look. Upper cabinets that we're putting above their existing uppers, so I need to start cutting out those face frames so the CNC can start cutting out those cabinet shells. Brandon is going to come back and start dadoing out all of those face frames. They're red oak custom stained for our custom cabinet shells that are sitting right here. So he'll work on that. I'm going to start working on the face frames. Let's get into it. I have my sheet right here that will tell me what I need to cut for my face frames. It's going to be beech material because these face frames are painted. And there is 8 face frames because there's 8 cabinets. So I need to cut out all my tops, my bottoms, my left and my right. These are uppers, so there's only 4 pieces for these face frames. So I'm going to grab my beech material that's right over there. Go to the Milwaukee chop saw here. Start cutting everything, organizing everything, and then we can sand everything down to the exact thickness we need. We'll just rough cut it here on the table saw. Sand it down on the vertical belt sander over there. Craig jig it over there. And then come back here, put it together, sand it, double check it, and then hopefully these will be ready to ship out to the other facility. Not sure if we'll get there today, but I'm hoping we will. So first step, grab the beech material, rip it down to rough width, chop it down with the chop saw, and start organizing and getting ready here. So face frames we're not making different, but the widths are a little bit different than normal. The reason for that is we have to match the cabinets above it. So that way, when the doors go up and down, everything lines up perfectly with the hinges. So these face frames were, instead of 1.5 inches wide, these are 1 3/4 of an inch wide, which is fine. I prefer 1.5 inches because it just gives you more rough opening room to use for the cabinet. But some cabinets are 1 3/4 wide, left and right, so that's fine. We just have to match that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut my 1 3/4 pieces to 2 inch wide. Chop them down, then I'll come back over here and then cut them again down to about 1 13/16, and then I'll go to the vertical belt sander and sand off that 1/16 of an inch. That way I can make sure the boards are perfectly straight. And then there's some 2.5 inch pieces, which are my top, and I make it a little bit wider so when we put our inch crown, we still have room for a gap and then the door to come up onto the face frame. So again, I'll cut that 2.5, a quarter over, chop it down, come back here, cut it a 1/16 over the 2.5, vertical belt sand it, Craig jig everything, screw everything together with glue and screws. So I'm going to cut down a bunch of 2 inch pieces, some 2 3/4, start using the chop saw. Now I have a bunch of 2 inch wide and 2.5 inch wide boards ripped down for the face frames. So what I'm going to do, oh, one other thing, I'm going to save this scraps. I won't probably be able to use this piece, but I may be able to use part of this piece. We do have to make some crown molding for them. Crown molding, it's just a square piece like what we are normally doing, but I'm going to save that because I think I can use that. I'm going to come over here with my math, and then I'm just going to start cutting all of these boards up into pieces. Once they're all cut, organized, we'll go back to the saw stop here. We'll cut them down to almost perfect width, about a 1/16 over, take it to the vertical belt sander, sand that out. Then we'll go over to the Craig jig machine. So let's start cutting out this sheet with our face frame math. What I'm doing first is I'm just going through here and I'm cutting all my tops my 2.5 inch wide pieces. I'm just gonna do all of that first, so that way when it comes to the rest of the pieces that are all the same width, I can just rinse and repeat. I don't have to be like, oh shoot, do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? I can just focus on one thing and then focus on the next. So kind of going by biggest to smallest here, but I've kind of hit a roadblock, so I'm just gonna keep doing all of the cabinets in order here. 26.5, let's see. Might be a hair over. Let's trim it. That has to be perfect. Yep, 26.5. So that's number 4 top, number 4 T. That's how we label them. We'll just set them there and then have to cross it off. Otherwise, you may recut something you've already cut, which isn't the greatest thing to do. So I need a 32.5 here. Number 5 top. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We need 6. I see I forgot to mark 7. So I need 6 and 8. They're both 26.5. I don't think I'm gonna have enough. Which maybe we will. Oh, we might. We might make it here. Six and a half. Number 6 top, perfect. And then number 8 is 26.5 as well. That worked out unbelievably perfect. Number 8 top. I don't know if you guys saw that or not, but a piece here, I don't even know, it just came unloosened, but I think I have it put back correctly. I don't know, sometimes things happen and then you have to figure out, okay, now how do I reverse engineer this to make it work? Well, it seems to be working now, so let's give it a test. Yep, we're back in business here. 26.5, it's a hair over. See if that made it any better. That's perfect now. Okay, we have all of our top pieces. Now we need to move on to our left sides, our right sides, and our bottom pieces. Always square your board off. If it's not square from the start, it won't be square at the end. It's definitely a problem. So let's go 23 and 5/8 here. A little bit more. Want to make sure I'm perfect. This is number 1 left, because I'm a 32nd here, 32nd there. Well, that adds up to a 16th, and now your cabinet width is a 16th over, which I'm not going to say doesn't happen because nobody's perfect, but we want to try to make sure that that doesn't happen. It definitely does happen, but if we can try to do our best at every level that we're doing, hopefully the end result is the best that it can possibly be. So we need a 20.5. This will be number 1. Bottom. I'd rather cut it a 32nd over and have to come back and shave instead of being a 32nd under, and then you're in trouble. So these are our 4 pieces for this first cabinet right here. We have our top, we have our bottom, we have our left and our right. So once I get the rest of all these cabinet face frames cut out, I'll go back to the saw stop, I'll trim them down, then we'll go to the vertical belt sander. So this is gonna take a little bit of time, but it's only 8, so it's not that bad. I ended up being 3 boards short, so I'm gonna have to cut one more 2-inch wide piece. That's fine. I'm gonna move all these over here. That way I'm able to cut. And our new shop is gonna be set up way differently, so we're not like on top of things that we need to use to cut and organize, and it's kind of a mess, but this has worked for 5 years, so it'll work for the last month or so. Just gonna move these out of the way. It's crazy how humid it is today here in Iowa. I mean, not really, it's always humid. It seems like in the spring and summertime because of all the corn, but it is crazy humid. But that's okay. I'm still gonna get a bunch of stuff done here. Move my scrap pieces out of the way. And now I'm just gonna rip down one more 2-inch wide piece. Double checking, yep. And then cut that out. We'll start trimming all of those to closer rough width before we go to the vertical belt sander. I'm always such a stickler on when you're done with one area, clean it up. So that way at the end, you don't spend forever cleaning. You can already just be clean. So I'm gonna finish organizing, and then we'll start cutting these down a little further so the vertical belt sander doesn't have to take, I mean, you don't want to, you can't take a quarter off, it'll take forever. And really, it's not even going to be a 1/16 the vertical belt sander is going to take off. It might be a 32nd, a little pass on each side, just to make sure, that's good over there, okay. Just to make sure that when we're palm sanding, we don't have to sand nearly as much to get it perfectly smooth. So, and that way then the boards are also perfectly straight. I don't know. It's one way I found that works well for us, so we do it that way. So now, I'm going to take about 1/8 off each side, roughly. And just go through every single piece. And do this until all these pieces are, for the most part, cut down. It's not that hard of a process. When you have like 40 cabinets, it takes a while, but there's only 8, and they're all uppers, so there's not nearly as many pieces. So I'm gonna finish cutting these down. We'll go to the vertical belt sander and get some stuff done. Honest review of this, I think I like it. I'm just so used to grabbing for these pushers that, I'm not used to grabbing for this, but I do think I like it for instances when I'm doing face frames. You just have to you have to make sure the blade goes through the grooves, otherwise it can be trouble. Has really good amount of grip, which I appreciate, nice handle. You just have to make sure that your blade isn't set too high here. And then you just slide it through. There's something about it, I don't know, I'm just not used to, but I do enjoy it, so. And it does work well. I just have to get used to it, I believe. But everything's going good. Everything's going well. About halfway through cutting these out. So I got all the 2.5s. I was switching back and forth, but I said, nope. Cut all the 2.5s. Have cut some of the 1 3/4. Again, just leaving them about a 16, 32nd over. Sent through that vertical belt sander. So I'm gonna keep cutting these all down. Get back with you when we go to the vertical belt sander. I have all my pieces over here organized on this racking, separated by size and cabinet number. So that way I can just rinse and repeat through the vertical belt sander. I'm gonna take off like a 32nd of an each total, just to smooth everything out, make sure there's no saw marks, dark marks. It just helps the palm sanding, gets the board perfectly straight. Then I'll come over here and Craig jig. So I'm gonna try to loop in some videos maybe from when Jacob and Brandon were installing our last kitchen that they just installed. Brandon did all the trim, they installed all the doors, installed all the cabinets. There's a bunch of stuff they did. So I'm gonna try to look through that tonight and see if I can add anything here. It looked really good, the stain and paint combo. I always like that combo a lot. So let's start sanding down these face frame boards, tops, bottoms, lefts, and rights. And then we'll go from there. We'll start Craig jigging. I have my 80 grit sandpaper loaded up. I'm not gonna do 150 grit. When we palm sand, go 150, 220. I just wanna get like the material off. So it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth or anything right now. We'll take care of that when we palm sand. But I have my dust collector plugged in, ready to go, turned on. This is ready to go. Now we should be ready to go. So since these are a little bit odd, I got to look through our sheet here and figure out what we need to be set on. Let's go 1 3/4 here. So obviously 1 is 1,000, 3/4 is 750. So I'm gonna go 1750, and that should give us 1 3/4. Same thing for the 2.5. 2,000 is 2, and then 500 would be half, so it'd be 2,500. But I'm going to do a pass here. I'm actually going to go up a little bit, do a pass, and then send it through again. Things are progressing pretty nicely. Just sending each side of our face frame through, just to clean them up a little bit, make sure they're all the exact same thickness. That way if there's any play with the fence or anything over on the saw stop, we just don't have to worry about that. I want everything to be uniform and as perfect as they can possibly be. See if we can't try to get 2 at a time. I might send this one back through. Again, I just want to, I don't want to have to be palm sanding forever either, so. There we go, that cleaned it up a bit. Still a little bit dark, but I can live with that. I'm just going to keep doing this until they're all completed. And then we'll go over and Craig jig. Brandon's over here datoing all of our face frames. That happens to be tricorn black. It's for a customer we did a year or 2 ago, whole kitchen. We did a bunch of stuff for him, but super awesome client. But now he just wants us to make a bathroom vanity. So Brandon's doing that. He's also datoing all of these red oak face frames. There's a bunch of them for all of those cabinets. So he's gonna take care of all of that, so then I can focus on these face frames. I'm just gonna finish doing the 2.5s on the vertical belt sander, and then I can start Craig jigging all the face frames so they can be put together. Going through all of my face frame pieces, I'm putting my right and my left side off to the side because they don't need Craig jig. It's just the top and the bottom. What I'm doing on my pieces that are anything less than 2.5 inches, I set up with my black line right there. This is already set up for 3/4. My back part is set up for 3/4. My fence is set up for 3/4. Make sure it's tight. Make sure that it is straight or perpendicular to the fence here. Then I'll simply Craig jig. Same thing with the other side. And you want it just barely poking through. Not really poking through, but just barely. That's how it'll look there. Do my other side. Same thing, make sure it's perpendicular to the fence. And rinse and repeat all the way through. On my 2.5 inch pieces, I set it up at the 1/2 inch mark because they don't need to be, the Craig jigs don't need to be as close together. I like using, which is probably not the norm for the industry, but it's what works well for us. Where my piece butts up like this to ingrain, right here, I'll use a fine thread screw, so that way my ingrain of my left and my right hand piece doesn't blow out and split out. But on the inside, Craig, I like using a coarse thread because it just grips the material way better, pulls it tighter. It can't spin out. I mean, if you're careful, it won't spin out, but on that rare chance you're not being careful, the fine thread can spin out. And I want these, I don't want our seams to crack. With expansion and inside a home, it's wood, so it can just, that's kind of, which is not great, but that's kind of what cabinets do. Just with humidity and temperature and how you keep your house and the environment, everything. But I just feel like with ample amount of glue, a coarse thread and a fine thread, it just really locks these pieces in together. Whereas when the Craigs are in more like this, I don't have to worry about the end grain here of the left or the right hand piece cracking out with a coarse thread. So I'm able to put 2 coarse thread, which I just feel way better about. It locks it all in. But on anything less than 2.5 inches, you really have to put those Craigs closer together, which ends up meaning they're closer to the sides. And you have to end up using the fine thread. It's just something I've learned over the years here, so that's my game plan. I'm just gonna keep Craiging all of these boards. One thing I wanted to talk about, I am looking at all the material too, just to make sure, as I'm cutting, I look through it, as I'm sanding, I look through it. At every step, I'm looking through it to make sure the best looking side is up. And I still want the back to look really good as well, even though you'll never see it, but I'm just looking through just to make sure everything looks great before it's together and you have to totally redo it all. So I want to make sure there's no cracks or splits or bows or bends or anything that will make it more difficult to install or look worse. Just want everything to look super nice, because that helps us when we install, and and then it also makes it look better for the client, which ultimately is the goal, to make everything look as perfect as possible. That's one thing. I don't know if you guys have ever watched Victory Outdoor Services. He's on YouTube. He's a concrete contractor. I love watching him for a lot of reasons, but one is he just does such incredible work with concrete. He makes it look so good every time. He's very real as well. But yeah, I'm just going to keep Craig jigging everything, and then I'll get all the tools, the glue, everything, screws that I need to put these face frames together. So I started putting these face frames together. Up here on the 2.5 inch piece, I was able to use all coarse thread because the Craig jigs won't blow out the end grain like I was talking about. But on these less wide pieces, 1 3/4, I'm going to use a fine thread down at the bottom where it may blow out the end grain, and that is something we do not want to have happen. So, using DeWalt, like Milwaukee better, but I'm using DeWalt today. I'm going to screw that in. Should be fine. Using a drill so I don't snap a screw. I think the drill has better feedback. You can tell what you're doing. You can tell when to stop. You can also set the chuck. Impact has its place, but I don't like it right now. What's up? You good? Oh. Brandon's over there datoing out face frames. So that's where I put my fine thread screw, right in here, and it didn't do anything to the end grain, so that is amazing. I'm just going to keep putting the rest of these 8 face frames together. I'll double check off our master list over here for all of our cabinets, just to make sure that I didn't miscut or do anything dumb before I sand all of these. So I'm just going to keep going here for the day and see how far I get. Brandon's now sanding down all the face frames from 13/16 thick to 3/4 inch thick with the vertical belt sander. I'm going to come over here and attach this tricorn black face frame to this vanity cabinet. There's going to be an applied panel that'll match the doors that go right here. 2 drawer boxes, a fake front, 2 doors. I'm going to get this on so it can't fall, get damaged or anything like that. And then I'll go help Brandon sand with the vertical belt sander. We'll sand with a DeWalt sander, palm sander, and then those will be ready to get finished tomorrow in our other facility. So I'm going to start putting this on. Since we're putting an applied panel that'll match the doors, 3/4 inch thick, we cut this dado right on the edge of the face frame here, so it's perfectly flush with this shell of our cabinet. So that way from the inside we can screw the applied panel on. We don't have to brad nail it because it's already finished at our other facility. It's already sprayed, cured out. So we don't want to brad nail, putty, and touch up. I hate doing that. So we're just going to screw it from the other side. And I don't want to pack this out. I want it just to be flush, so the panel will just go right onto there, just like that. Be in line in front of our face frame and look really good. So I started doing that a little while ago with a few other cabinets, and it's turned out great. So that's just how I do it now. I have the toe kick in, glued, brad nailed. Face frame is dado, glued and screwed. This cabinet's good to go. It's really dusty, but it's good to go. Need to make the boxes, make the doors, install that, make a little bit of toe kick for the client, and then this can get sent to the client's house. Now over here with Brandon, helping him run through these face frames. We're making about 8 or 9 passes through the vertical belt sander. Getting these face frames down from 13/16 thick to 3/4 of an inch thick. I'm using a combination of 80 grit sandpaper and 150 grit just to get everything smoothed out. Make sure there's no scratches, anything like that. Make these face frames look really good. I mean, look at that joint. Craig jig does wonders. I know sometimes Craig jig is hated on, but makes a really strong joint with screws and glue, and it looks good. You can't see anything. This is the back side, obviously, but from the front you can't see anything. Holds up well, very durable. Once Brandon and I are done with this, we're almost done. I think there's maybe one more pass after this. We're going to use a palm sander just to make sure everything's cleaned up. Looking super good. And I think Carl's going to come back, fire up the CNC right there. We'll start cutting out these cabinet shelves. I'm not sure about that. Otherwise, we can go start putting the red oak face frames onto the cabinet shelves. But one way or another, we'll be doing something for the rest of the day. So here's the front. Seams look really good. Love that. We're going to finish up here. Brandon and I are now sanding down these face frames. Beech material with 150 grit sandpaper, palm sanding, just to clean them up, make sure they're perfect before they go and get finished. This is our last time to look them over. We want to make sure there's no issues when they get sent to our other facility. They get sprayed and get sent through the oven. I believe the color is Ice Cube from Sherwin-Williams. It's a really nice light gray. It's almost a white, but it's a light gray. Looks really good. So we're going to get to sanding. Spend, I don't know, 30 minutes or so sanding. That might be it for the day. We'll see. We'll just see what else the day brings. We might start cutting out cabinets from our CNC. Not sure yet, but we're going to sand these with the palm sander and go from there. Jacob's almost finished. He's almost on his way back from taping today. So it's not that big of a kitchen. It's a pretty normal sized kitchen, but there's a bathroom and a hutch. So I think he's going to go prime and spray there tomorrow. And then it's just existing doors. Which is awesome. That's actually what we started with 7 years ago now. Just everything existing. So the doors have been finished. I think they're going to actually be finished tomorrow. The other facility, sent through the oven and everything. And then I think those doors will go on Thursday or Friday. But Jacob's going to be priming and spraying there tomorrow. Last bit of stuff Brandon and I did before he left today was he got all this crown trim, screen molding. We have to do a couple more fillers tomorrow, but he got that all cut out. We ran it through the vertical belt sander to get it to size. And then we will DeWalt sand, palm sand, clean it up tomorrow, double check it all. It's been a super busy day today. Appreciate you watching. Check out our website. If you have any questions about what we do, or if you want to see what we do, if you want a free quote, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notifications. We'll see you tomorrow. Adios.